Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In just the last 22 days, which seems at this point like 22 months, they've sacked 17 inspector generals, the major corruption fighters in federal agencies. They've illegally tried to freeze government spending that has been appropriated by the Congress of the United States. They've fired heads of 4 independent agencies, and they've shut down work completely, at least 4 agencies, paying thousands and thousands of federal workers to do nothing because they want to try to bring the work of the federal government that doesn't directly profit them to a screeching halt. Meanwhile, Musk and his completely unvetted and untrained night crew of assistants have gained access to at least 18 federal agencies, stolen reams of the American people's data from the agencies, and fired thousands of workers in violation of civil service due process, trampling all of the checks and balances and rights to individual adjudication that Mr. Smith just referred to. All of these actions are profoundly disturbing, but it's the data grab that is rocking the American people right now. The capture of this data represents an unprecedented hack into our most sensitive information and a profound risk it is for all Americans. Professor Vladeck, Musk and his team say that they access these sensitive and confidential data sets, some of them might include classified information for all we know, in order to root out fraud. How do we actually root out fraud in the government?
So historically, Congressman, as you know, the way that we root out fraud is through a series of overlapping and interlocking mechanisms. The inspectors general are the first line of defense within the agencies. The idea is that their job is to provide regular audits of what the agency is doing. As you know, there are various statutes that allow private citizens to seek to investigate fraud and to make claims against the government when they think there is fraud. The False Claims Act at the top of that list. And then, Congressman, there's this committee, and there's its companion committee in the Senate that use its oversight functions to ensure that the government is complying with its statutory obligations, Congressman, to investigate fraud in all of its spaces.
Well, to illegally wipe out all these inspectors general, and it was in direct and admitted violation of the federal statute, which says that the president has to come to Congress first and set forth the rationale for why they're being fired 30 days before it happens. But in doing that, what will the effect be on actually trying to root out waste, corruption, fraud, self-dealing in the agencies?
So I think the reality is that you're going to have a split between fraud, waste, and corruption that has no coordination, that has no involvement from senior officials in the agency, which I suspect the agencies might still have some interest in going after, and fraud, waste, corruption, and abuse that the senior officials in the agency are aware of because now they're the only people in a position to do anything about it. The reason why Congress historically separated the function of the heads of agencies from the inspector general is so that the inspector general would be in a position to review even the senior leadership of agencies when it came to these concerns. That's the biggest thing you lose when you fire all
right, so if they're undermining the infrastructure that's set up to actually try to target fraud and waste and abuse, why are they accessing all of the data of the American people?
I mean, I think that's a question this committee ought to ask them, Congressman. But I'll just say, and I think this is an important point, we can all surely agree that rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse in the executive branch is actually a noble goal, and it's a goal that we should all be invested in. But the way to do it is to either, one, use existing mechanisms, or two, come to this body, Congress, this committee, and suggest why the existing mechanisms need to be reformed, as opposed to starting from scratch.
Well, Elon Musk is the wealthiest person on earth, or at least he was before the collapse of Tesla in Europe recently, but he's a very wealthy man. Could he benefit financially from accessing all of the data in the United States Department of Treasury computers?
I mean, I would think anyone who has contracts with the United States and with other governments would benefit from having access to that information.
A federal judge in New York just ordered Musk to destroy the data they had illegally obtained from the Treasury Department. This is the judge they're all now talking about impeaching. Who can ensure that Musk has followed the order of the court and destroyed this data?
I mean, it seems to me that there are two possibilities, Congressman. The courts are first, and I think Congress and this committee in particular are second.
We're reading reports that Musk has fed Americans' data, private data, into AI models. And he's also making a bid for another company in artificial intelligence, just going ahead and doing his business while he's purporting to do the business of the American people. What dangers are posed by the feeding of our data into an AI system, if that were to happen?
I mean, I think there are multiple levels of danger, and I know that the time is expiring. I'll just say that I think the most obvious dangers are the possibility that this data will become accessible, not just to our government operations, but to our enemies overseas, and they'll use that for malicious purposes.
Gentleman's time is expired.